Okay, while we're getting those questions in, I have a couple URLs and things like that. Are you pulling any of this data in real time, or is it all being curated and then released on as additions, as it were?
We have two ways. One is that we bring data in and curate it, and the other is we simply bring in URLs, and so the data, a lot of the data attached to these chemicals is just these big text reports that are outside. So,
but not the structures, though, I'm assuming.
But the structures are all curated.
Any plans there to either both ways to make this, web services in and out?
Okay, we have. So that's interesting. So we have a web service. So if you type in there's a URL that has a CAS number, a particular URL. So you type in the URL, put the CAS number in, it will bring up the structure page. We could easily, I could see doing the same thing where you would put a smiles or an inching.
Mm-hmm.
That would be an interesting thing to do.
What were the unexpected surprises, as it were, both good way and bad way, with let's just say the JChem stuff and the Marvin stuff?
The good way was it did most of what we needed it to do. One of the problems here, a couple of problems we have been facing. One is again with these similarity thresholds. The definition of similarity versus dissimilarity was confusing to us, and so we actually had to do a lot of experimentation to figure out how that worked. Mm-hmm. And I'm still not entirely happy with how that works. The other is in order to get these particular fingerprints in, or these structure fragments, we haven't figured out how to do that. We know that it can be done, but we haven't gotten that running yet.
Yeah, I know what you mean there. Quite often it's a question of making a decision and then going with it. So if you've got too many, I sometimes find that our users have too many options,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to think. One other thing which I think is our problem rather than a JChem problem is, and so anybody who goes and starts playing with ACToR, any of the listeners today, there's a known bug which I'm going to tell you about. So the first time you go and you draw a chemical structure into ACToR, so you have a virgin machine that's never seen this website before, you draw a chemical structure, you hit search, what it's going to do is actually throw an error and send you back to the home page.
Oh.
Okay, go to the search page again and it works fine. And so there's some interaction between our web server security code and the ChemAxon applet that we haven't sorted out, that it throws this error one time, and then once you've thrown it, it's all happy. And so that's something we're developers is trying to sort out. But we believe it has to do with us rather than with anything in the market.
Although the forums normally are really hot, that's exactly the sort of thing that they're going to talk about on the forum, because it's sort of, you feel it's not quite your zone, but you want to be double, triple sure that nobody else is getting the same bug before you go, audit your entire security system. Right. So it's always a winner, that one. I would have mentioned, I noticed you were using the OpenEye Babel stuff for your file conversions, and yeah, that's all fine. My comment would be about structure checker, because we have a bunch of structure checking capabilities coming in with the 5.3, which actually should be out this week, next week. So we're able to actually do structure file checking and then set rules for fixing as well, and that could be useful if you, in terms of batch processing your stuff in. I'm not sure.
Right. The Babel stuff was it's a little bit of a legacy. It was things that, again, Tom Transu and others here had used before. It has, again, anybody who's used that knows it has its own problems, and in particular the open source piece of that, there are, for instance, metals it doesn't really know how to deal with. And these environmental chemicals, there's lots of organometallics and salts and so on.
Right.
I don't know whether
No, I would like to say
ChemAxon
myself,
software
actually.
will-
I mean, very much the zone is organic chemistry, life science. But
Right.
we've had to put quite a few features in just over the years to support the different. I mean, for instance, we're being used over at Reaxis now, so that sort of really exposes us to much more general chemistry. And they seem pretty happy with the core functionality. So I wouldn't be surprised. I know that we're weak on inorganic, but I don't think we're. Well, when I spoke to the guys 2-3 years ago, they were not particularly concerned about bringing it all in, if need be. But again, we're not being called to do it. So there's other things that we are being called to do.
Yeah. But for instance, you certainly within your applet you have the whole periodic table. Okay, so the Babel doesn't even have the whole periodic table.
Right.
So there's certain atoms it just doesn't recognize. So I suspect you're already beyond that.
Yeah. I think this checker stuff's going to be good for you, really. It's pretty much exactly for this, for batch processing large numbers of structure files.
Right.
And then automatically fixing them if it can't bring them in. So, yeah, that should be a hot one for you. The other one, I suppose, would be the web services.
Another thing that the Babel chokes on is many people, there are many mixtures that we have to deal with, and so that you can have a mole file that has two disconnected chemicals that Babel will choke on. I'm assuming your software is smart enough to...
Yeah, if you haven't actually had a chance to play with it, Standardizer. Standardizer, this is part of the reason we built it. You can do salt stripping with it. So that can be, and that's also coming, you're using MySQL, but even if you're using Oracle, you can control it from, in the Oracle case, from the Oracle SQL. So it's just a sort of a list of business rules that it applies. But that's very powerful. Maybe not as powerful as Cheshire, because that's a programming language, but pretty much all of the structure-based calculations that we have, they can be applied and combined to perform transformations on input sets. So you definitely want to have a look at that. It's also very useful for searching too, because it's a structure canonicalization tool. So if you're not performing any sort of canonicalization on your source set or your queries, then you're only ever going to find what it looks like, rather than all of the other instances.
Right.
So that's that could be worth having a look at as well. I think especially if you've got a very diverse user group, because they expect to see results and they don't think that they're coming from I'm drawing it this way and other people draw it a different way.